Hello, good morning. I am Pam Fox at pamfox.org. And let's see, this morning I'm going to be talking about the importance of breath work for reversing your hiatal hernia. I'm going to turn this off, it's very distracting. So, I reversed my own hiatal hernia, and this month I'm coming on live to share all of the different things that I tried and all of the different things that actually worked for me in terms of reversing my hiatal hernia. We're really just kind of starting this week, starting out talking about some of the basic, very simple and gentle exercises that I developed, because in the beginning I was trying all of the things that people kind of offer on YouTube. And for some of those things, I think they all work. We just have to be ready for them, and we have to, I don't think you can really do them wrong, other than if you're pulling in your abs. Then those exercises that are trying to move your stomach down, your abs are pulled in and pushing the stomach back up. But other than that, I don't really think we can do them wrong. I think that just if we're not ready for them, hi Paula, if we're not ready for those more kind of advanced exercises for where we are, then they're just going to irritate our hiatal hernia and make us feel more nauseous, more, more whatever. And so, I was at that point where I needed something more gentle. I needed something slower. And so I'm just kind of sharing some of these things. Like I shared, this idea of around the belly, really just helping you to relax the abs, begin to really become familiar with your abdomen and maybe where you have sensitivities, where this feels good, and where you can start to work on those adhesions, where you have, adhesions in the fascia or in the peritoneum. We talked about that, and then we talked about this exercise, which I call rock and roll, where you come into a reclining position, arch the back, breathe in, and fully exhale. And what that's trying to do, again, is just trying to kind of pump that stomach out with each breath, pulling the stomach down and moving the diaphragm up. So I hope you're beginning to see that, that this idea of moving the stomach down can be done. What goes up must come down. So this idea that we can move our stomach down and out of the herniated position can be done. But it takes time. I mean, like I was talking about yesterday, for some people they can get it down quick. But for most of us, it takes time. In that process, we can have symptoms during that process because that stomach is moving through that hole. And so those tissues can be tender. We have the vagus nerve to contend with. We're putting additional pressure maybe on that nerve as we're pulling that stomach down. And so it can be really frustrating because it can increase our symptoms and make us want to quit. And I understand if you want to quit. I totally understand. When I first started this, I quit. But I came back to it and I started developing more gentle ways of slowly moving the stomach down. Keep in mind too, that peritoneum, that lining of the abdominal cavity, that lining of your organs where those attachments are creating, that we're starting to stretch that peritoneum and relocate the stomach back down to its original place. As we stretch and pull that peritoneum, there can be pain even with that. I'm learning a lot about the peritoneum right now, and it's really interesting. A lot of this stuff is it's a mystery. When we start looking into learning about our internal anatomy, it's really, even the best experts on this stuff, it's still just a huge mystery. I mean, we can learn things about our anatomy, but the body is a really incredible thing. So anyway, I hope you're really beginning to see that this can be done. It just takes time. And so I just wanted to, I bring that up a lot because I get a lot of people that contact me and they're desperate, and I understand. I have been there. I know that feeling because, again, we have this vagus nerve, and I'm going to do a whole video about the vagus nerve, but the stomach is innervated by the vagus nerve, and it comes down the esophagus, and that esophagus as well is completely supplied by lots of vagus nerve, and it comes down the stomach, and it supplies the stomach with, just like if you were just imagine this covered with like roots or branches of a tree. That's what the vagus nerve looks like. And so, if your stomach has pressure on it, maybe it's folded and squished like this, maybe it's pressed up into the diaphragm, maybe it's, a lot of it is up into the chest cavity where there's a lot of pressure on it. Same thing with your esophagus. If you've got squishing and pressure on your esophagus, you can see how that vagus nerve would be compromised. And all you have to do is think about any of our nerves, like if you have sciatica, pinched nerve, lots of issues. Carpal tunnel, pinched nerves, lots of issues. You can almost lose the use of your hand with carpal tunnel. So compromised vagus nerve function is a big deal. All of our pathways in our body, you know, arterial, lymph, you know, if anytime you get a clogged pipe, you know, digestion, windpipe, you're going to have issues. And the same is true for the nervous system and our nerves. Those, you know, those pathways, things need to flow through them. Okay, so today, though, we're going to talk about breath work, the importance of breath work in reversing a hiatal hernia. So there are three things that come to mind when I think about breath work, three reasons why they help us reverse our hiatal hernia. So I'm going to share those three things, then we're going to do a little breath work at the end of this video. So when we do breath work, so meditative breathing, diaphragmatic breathing, all of the exercises that I teach involve breath work. Basically, we're slowing the breath and we're relaxing the muscles of the body. Those are the two things we're trying to do. We're looking for tension throughout the body. Sometimes it's in the jaw, the neck, the shoulders. Oftentimes it's in the belly, especially for those of us with hiatal hernia. But anywhere where you carry tension, really seek it out as you begin to slow the breath and relax the body. Find a comfortable place where there's no distractions. If you want to listen to peaceful music, that can be helpful. Hi, Kay. Listen to something like, you know, singing bowls. The resonating vibration of the singing bowls can be very helpful to promote relaxation. Water music, you know, whatever works for you to really help calm you and begin to focus on relaxing the muscles and slowing the breath. And so with meditative breathing, we don't force the breath. We don't take a huge breath, blow it all out, although there are forms of meditative breathing like that. But at its you know, basic foundation, meditative breath is supposed to be natural, and the more we relax, the longer those breaths and slower they will become, which means your diaphragm will go through a bigger range of motion. It means, hi Ian, I'm great, good morning, how are you? So that means when we inhale, the diaphragm comes down, and we exhale, it comes up, and if we're relaxed, then those breaths are going to be long, and that diaphragm is going to be able to go through its full range of motion instead of, you know, shallow breathing like this. This is what we want. We want a long, deep, full range of motion for our diaphragm. And so those are some tips to help you relax. Then the first thing that you want to do when you start your meditative practice, if this is new to you, is you want to connect with your breath. And what that means is you want to listen and feel for the sound and the vibration of the breath. And if you're not sure what I mean by that, and this is important, what you can do to connect with your breath is pretend or pretend like you're snoring, so that you can really find where that vibration is. So if you pretend like you're snoring, you'll feel where that vibration is that I'm talking about, and you'll hear it. And then with your meditative practice, you want to breathe and connect with that vibration and that sound. You don't have to snore, but just kind of, you know, when you hear someone just start to fall asleep, they're making that kind of a vibration. So start to breathe where you're really connecting with that little bit of vibration in the back of the throat. Think about your body, where is the tension, and let it go. So that's where you can start with your breath. Meditation doesn't have to be a complete emptying of the mind. Don't worry about any of that. Focus on connecting with the breath, focus on where the tension is on your body, and let it go. Even if you do this for 30 seconds to a minute, that's a good start. Okay, so really the idea of this is setting aside time every day, whether it's first thing in the morning, whether you're taking time at work during your lunch break, take a couple minutes, 5 minutes, do it every day. If you can do it multiple times a day, that's even better for your hernia. And we're going to talk about why in a moment, but I'm just trying to kind of give you some tips and set you up for best ways to relax and slow the breath during your meditation. So yeah, connect with the breath, relax the muscles. Okay, so the three reasons that this breath work is so important in reversing a hiatal hernia. Number one is when we breathe in, when we take a deep breath, our diaphragm moves downward. Okay, so that gives the lungs room to expand. So the diaphragm moves downward. So remember, when you have a hiatal hernia, your stomach is stuck in your diaphragm. So if this is my diaphragm and I breathe in and it moves down, the stomach's going to go down with it, right? Okay. But like I was showing yesterday, if you can come into a reclining position, that's going to move your diaphragm up. So your diaphragm is going to be lifted. And then when you breathe in, the diaphragm still is going to come down. The stomach is going to go with it. But the diaphragm is pushing the stomach down, which is what we want. We want the stomach to come down. But what we also want is for that diaphragm then to come up on the exhale and for the separation to occur. So we want that diaphragm to begin to come up, and we want the stomach to stay down so we can create that separation. So that's why one of the exercises I teach during this breath work is to recline, to apply pressure on that fundus, arch the back, breathe in, the diaphragm lifts up, but we're putting pressure on that stomach and creating that leverage. So we're holding the stomach down, and as the diaphragm breathes in and breathes out, we're kind of pumping and pulling that stomach out. And for most people, this doesn't happen instantly. In other words, that stomach for most people isn't going to dislodge the first time you try this. It takes time and practice. And I'm going to do a whole video on the timeline of how long it took me, because that's probably the #1 question I get. Is how long is this going to take? How long does it take to heal or reverse a hiatal hernia? There is no answer to that question because each of us is different. Each of us has a different size hernia. Each of us has different conditions. Each of us has different diets. Each of us has we're a different size and have a different amount of fat over our abdomen. So it's going to be different for everybody. Each of us is going to have a different level of commitment as to how often we practice these exercises. So there's no answer to that. But I will do a video and share my timeline and kind of my journey and what I did and when things started to move and how long it took. So that's #1. We have to understand that when we do breath work, the diaphragm moves down when we breathe in. It takes the stomach with it, but then on the exhale, it moves up. And so we want to try to apply leverage on that stomach to keep it down, and the diaphragm is just going to move up on its own. And so with deep meditative breaths, the diaphragm is going to move nice and high on that exhale. As long as you're still breathing out, the diaphragm is still moving up. Okay, and if you hold the exhale, it's going to stay up. So you can see when you're breathing, the diaphragm is going to come down, and if it's a full breath, it's going to come really far down and push that stomach down. And remember, the key to all of this is relax the belly, relax the abs, really, really relax the abs. And if you have to stop and do this exercise that I call Eye of the Storm, remember this is the left side, so I'm going down the left. My phone is just reversed. To help relax those muscles, do that for a couple of minutes. Do that for a couple of minutes. So that's #1, is we're creating that separation with the breaths. We're creating that separation. Okay, so the second reason that breath work is so important in reversing a hiatal hernia is because it begins to strengthen the diaphragm. So the diaphragm is skeletal muscle, okay? I don't know why there's controversy over this. I've done my homework. I've looked it up in textbooks and on sources online that I trust. I can't find anywhere where it says it's not skeletal muscle. I just hear other people tell me. I've even heard people say, my doctor said you can't reverse a hiatal hernia because it's not, because that, and I understand why they would think this, and here's why. They think that we can't strengthen our diaphragm because the diaphragm moves on its own. So the muscles in our body that move on our own are known as, we have involuntary muscles and we have voluntary muscles. So if I voluntarily flex my bicep, that's a voluntary muscle because I have control over it. But something like, the diaphragm, it just does work all by itself. I don't have to tell it what to do. Our heart pumps all by itself. I don't have to tell it what to do. My uterus, when I give birth, contracts by itself. I don't have to tell it to do that. So I can understand why they think this, but the fact is that our diaphragm is skeletal muscle, and we can control it, right? We can take a really deep breath if we want to. We can take a really big exhale if we want to. We can control our diaphragm. And you can ask anybody who's a professional singer. They do all kinds of things to strengthen their diaphragm because it helps them with their singing. So we can strengthen our diaphragm, and remember that this hole in the diaphragm known as the hiatus, this is what we're trying to bulk up. This is what we're trying to make smaller. So in a healthy person with an ideal hiatus, this is just maybe, a tiny little slit like that. Just enough room for the esophagus to come through, and then the stomach stays below the diaphragm because that hole is nice and small. And so for those of us with hiatal hernia, that stomach has made its way through that hiatus, and if we can strengthen the diaphragm, and so what happens when we build a muscle? When we build a muscle, the fibers, you can strengthen the heart too. Yeah, thanks, Ian. Good point. The muscle tissue, when we build it, the fibers, they will tear and break, and then they will repair and rebuild. So that's the basic, when we build a muscle, that's basically what happens. So those muscle fibers tear, and then they repair and they rebuild. And so what happens when we rebuild an injury? Because essentially that's what a torn muscle fiber is. It's a little tiny injury, and the body goes in to heal that, rebuild it, and then we have a bigger, bulkier, stronger muscle, right? So that's what we want for that hiatus. We want to rebuild that muscle so it's bigger, bulkier, tighter, and smaller. And so this is not going to happen overnight. This is going to take time. This is going to take time. And for me, now I had a small hiatal hernia. Mine was 2.5 centimeters, which is considered small. For me, when I started doing this breath work daily, when I started focusing on that, I did a lot of other things up until I started working on the breath work. But when I had the revelation that, I can strengthen my diaphragm and build up that hiatus, at least I thought I might be able to, within a month, I was pretty much completely symptom-free. I got better and better and better until I was almost completely symptom-free. Now, occasionally something will cause my stomach to tighten up, something like raw garlic. It hasn't happened in a long time, though. The stomach will contract and it'll push up. If I'm having stress and I start to notice that kind of low-grade indigestion feeling, a little bit of nausea, I'll ask myself, what are my abs doing? And they're pulled in tight. And so I can relax. I'm at the point where I can relax the belly, do a couple of deep breaths where I'm expanding the belly, really opening up the belly, stretching those abs, and the symptoms, they go away like that. That's where I'm at. But it took me about a month to do this breath work to really get to the point where I knew that hiatus must have been strengthening, because I just became less and less and less symptomatic to the point where I just stopped doing exercises altogether. So strengthening the diaphragm. Hi, Sheriff Zal Khan. Sorry if I butchered your name. Good morning. So yes, we can strengthen the diaphragm, but it takes time and it takes commitment, it takes patience, and it takes practice. The third reason that breath work is so important for reversing your hiatal hernia is what I was talking about before, about the vagus nerve. So again, your stomach is innervated by that vagus nerve. It supplies the stomach with nerves. So again, it's covered with these branches supplying the stomach with the vagus nerve. And if that's pinched, if it's pinched, the nerve can come, it just depends on your hernia. So some people don't experience kind of these vagus nerve symptoms like panic attack, anxiety, heart palpitations, heart racing, lump in the throat. These, I've been told, are all a result of compromised vagus nerve function, a pinched vagus nerve. For some people, the nerve comes down, the nerve itself. Hello, Suzanne Wooden from Florida. Oh man, I bet it's nice there. It's kind of cruddy here today. Wish I was there. Unless you're having a monsoon or something. So that vagus nerve, it's one nerve that comes down and then it branches off and supplies the stomach. But let's say, the nerve is here, and let's say your stomach is folded like this. Or let's say your stomach is pressed up tight into the diaphragm and the vagus nerve is here. Or let's say you've got a really large hernia where a large portion of the stomach is up in the chest cavity and the lungs and the heart are pushing against that vagus nerve. So you can see how that nerve can be compromised. And when you begin to do breath work, this is one of the things that we can do to improve vagal tone on our own. There are things you can do surgically. You can look into that if you want to, but there are things you can do on your own, and one is meditative breathing. It's going to really help stimulate and reset, for lack of a better phrase, your vagus nerve and improve your vagal tone. Now, If your stomach is still herniated and you still have pressure on that nerve, that's not the time to, really focus on improving vagal tone. You need to focus on getting the stomach down and out. Because for most of us, just simply unherniating your stomach is what's going to give you relief from your symptoms. And then you can begin to heal and improve vagal tone by continued meditative practice. Okay, so those are 3 of the reasons why incorporating breath work, if you're interested in reversing your hiatal hernia naturally, is committing to every day to breath work. So we're going to go ahead and do a little bit of breath work right now. And it's really what I've been doing all along. So, I shared this exercise I call Eye of the Storm, where we just gently go down the left side in a circular motion. And you want to be breathing during this, and you want to be relaxing, and you want to be expanding your belly. So really focus on the belly as it pushes the hands out. That's how we expand our belly. And sometimes for some people just doing this, they feel a little bit of movement. But, keep in mind your stomach is most likely up and adhered to the diaphragm, so it's going to take time. Another exercise that I teach is called kneading dough, where you just take the heels of your hands and you begin to gently press down. And this is a very, very gentle, it's not, a lot of times you'll go online and you'll see these chiropractors showing how you push in really deep and then you push down really deep. When I first started trying those exercises, it really, really messed me up. It put a lot of pressure on my vagus nerve. I had a lot of anxiety, a lot of pain. Of course, I got in there really aggressively. And when it started hurting, I just pushed harder. So don't do that. I know a lot of people are like that. You think, no pain, no gain. Get in there and really work it out. For some people that might work, but this is why I've developed the exercises I've developed to be really gentle, so that we can practice this every day and gently move the stomach down. So kneading dough is simply from the rib cage on the left side to the left hip and gently pressing down. And what you want to focus on is stretching the skin. That's it, just stretching the skin. So if you do this on bare skin, you'll kind of get the idea what I mean. No oils, you'll feel that skin pulling down. That's applying leverage on that stomach and pushing it down. And again, this takes time. It takes time to begin to get movement. So you can try that. And again, you want to breathe during this. You want to practice your breathing, expanding the belly, taking full breaths, and completely deflating. Remember, it's in that deflate that the diaphragm moves up. It's in that deflate that we get that movement of the diaphragm up, and then as we're applying leverage and moving the stomach down, that's where we're hoping to get that separation. So you can practice this Eye of the Storm. You can practice, so you do this for about a minute, relax the abs, breathe into the belly. And then you can go into kneading dough, relax the abs, breathe into the belly. Really expand the belly, take full breaths, relax your shoulders. This should be very relaxing. And then you can go into the exercise we did yesterday, the rib roll, or I call it the rock and roll, where you again apply that leverage on that fundus. We talked about that yesterday, this curvature of the stomach here, pressing down on that instead of right on top where the tissues are tender, over on the side, pressing on the side. And then we can get that leverage, and then we rock, we arch the back, breathe in, expand the belly, and fully exhale, relax down. So you can do that for about a minute. Again, breath work, breathing in and out slowly, relaxing, connecting with the breath, the sound and the vibration. Okay, and so I want to introduce another exercise today. I think, yeah, I've got time. I want to introduce another exercise today, and this is a diaphragm exercise. So keep in mind, you can do any diaphragm exercise to start to strengthen your diaphragm. But the one thing that you want to change is relaxing the abs. So any conventional diaphragm exercise will instruct you to take in a deep breath and expand the belly, and then to exhale and pull in the abs tight. And the reason for that is because that's going to really push that diaphragm up. What we want to do is isolate our diaphragm. We don't want to aid the diaphragm. We want to isolate it and make it work on its own. So relax your abs, and we also don't want to pull our abs in and push that stomach up. So for those of us with hiatal hernia, Diaphragmatic breathing is important, but you've got to make that one change. Relax the abs the whole time. The entire time you're breathing, relax the abs. So, so in this next exercise, I consider it more of an advanced diaphragmatic exercise. So if you need to continue with just the gentle belly breathing, you know, some of these exercises, go ahead and do that. But basically what it is you breathe in and you count. So you breathe into, like say, a count of 5, and then you hold it for a count of 5, and then you exhale for a count of 10. And so what this is doing is you're taking in your breath, so the diaphragm is moving down, and then you're going to hold it for a count of 5. So that would be like if I had, you know, a hand weight in my hand and I was doing, you know, bicep curls, and then if, you know, if I were to kind of let that down and hold it, that muscle is going to contract, right? It's going to contract statically, and it's going to hold. And it's going to make the muscle work harder, right? So that's what we're doing when we count. We breathe in for 5, we hold for 5, and we exhale for 10. And the reason we exhale for 10, again, is because we're getting that diaphragm to move up, 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 up. Okay? So there is a warning with this exercise. If you feel dizzy, stop. And you don't want to do it a long time. You really only want to take 4 or 5 of these breaths. These are a labored, forced kind of breath because you're holding your breath. Okay? So you can get dizzy from this. You can pass out from this. So I want to make that warning, and I want to remind you to do these exercises at your own risk. So if you have, you know, other issues and you think this would be unsafe for you, by all means, don't do it. But this is, again, I would consider it a more advanced exercise because it's working the diaphragm. It's working that diaphragm. So if you need to go back to the drawing board and really work on moving your stomach down, that's fine. You can play around with this. My best advice for you would be just to take 5 minutes and get comfortable somewhere. I like to lay down on my back. Find, really just kind of play with this area. And if you can find some bubble movement that doesn't hurt, you know, just gently pressing, just very gently, just kind of feeling around in there. If you find some bubbles, relax the abs and just hold that. That's down your stomach, and it's put a little pressure on that. And if you feel those bubbles, that means it's moving down. So you can hold that and then do your breath work. Breathe in, expand the belly. Exhale, fully deflate the lungs. Breathe in, expand the belly. Exhale, fully deflate the lungs. And really just focus on connecting with your breath and relaxing. That's it. That's all you have to do is connect with your breath and relax your muscles. You don't have to clear your mind. You don't have to empty your mind and think about nothing. You need to think about your breath, connect with that breath, look throughout the body for tension, especially in the abs, and let that go. Okay? So that's it for today. I feel like I've kind of covered the basics of this idea of helping you understand that we are creating an unherniation. We're trying to move that stomach back down to where it's supposed to be by lifting the diaphragm and moving the stomach down. And we do that through softening and breaking up that peritoneum. We do that through leverage, and we do that through breath work. Okay, so I'm hoping that you're beginning to really believe. Hi, Teresa. Hoping you're beginning to really believe. Shoot me some hearts if you believe. I love hearts, guys. You don't give me enough hearts. Shoot me some hearts if you believe that this can be done. So up next, I'm going to begin to talk about, we're going to be going even further back to the basics. So for many of us, we need to go a little bit deeper when it comes to getting to the root of our GERD, of our LPR, of our hiatal hernia. There's some hearts, thank you. We need to go to the root, and for some of you, maybe you've got a great diet, maybe you're in really good shape and you still have this hiatal hernia, and you just need to focus on these exercises. But for many of us, we have digestive conditions, right? We have digestive conditions. So maybe you've got inflammatory bowel disease, IBS, Crohn's, diverticulosis, SIBO, ulcers. There's so many different conditions of the digestive tract, and you've got to make the connection that these conditions are a result of everything that we put in our mouth. Every bit of food, every bit of beverage, every drug, antibiotics, prescription drugs, cigarettes, all of it. Your digestive conditions are a result of what you're putting in your mouth. So if you've got digestive conditions, you've really got to start there, because when we have digestive conditions, all that means is we have an injured digestive tract. We have an injured digestive tract, and so the body is trying to heal that. And what happens when the body tries to heal an injury? It floods it with what's needed to begin the healing process. And what do we get? We get inflammation. So if you're going to start coming in here and doing all these exercises and you've got an inflamed system, it's probably going to hurt. It's probably going to make you feel worse. Okay, and it might not even, probably won't even work. You know that saying, take, 2 steps forward and 3 steps back? That's kind of what's happening if you're not digesting the root of this problem first. So we really got to take a look at the diet. And I'm not a nutritionist or a dietitian. I can't tell you what to eat, but I can tell you what diet I'm on, and I can tell you how much I love it, and I can tell you everything it's done for me. And for those of you that follow me, you already know all of this, but we're going to start talking a little bit more about diet, and I hope I can inspire you to really take a look at your plate, really take a look at the way you've been eating your whole life, and to really connect with, most people will be like, yeah, I could eat a lot healthier. They understand that, but they don't understand the very deep and meaningful power of food. Food can kill you. It can heal you, it can destroy you. And it might do it slowly. It might, make you sick slowly over time to where you don't start feeling these chronic conditions until you get older. When we're younger, we're much more resilient and the body can handle a lot more. But we all, our systems have their breaking point. And so, if you've been eating poorly your whole life, there comes a time where the system can't take it anymore. And why do we have symptoms? Why do we have pain and discomfort? It's because the body's letting us know enough is enough. It speaks to us. It's speaking to us to let us know enough is enough. Anytime we have pain and discomfort, the body is communicating with us. When we stand too close to the fire, it hurts, right? So we hear that communication, pain and discomfort, and we make an adjustment. We step back. The body is communicating with you through your pain and discomfort. So you've got to make a correction. And that doesn't mean it's got to be, a sacrifice or depriving or poor me. It really doesn't. The diet that I'm on is so enjoyable. I feel amazing. I've never felt better. I was overweight when I started the diet. I've lost 50 pounds. I know a lot of you with hiatal hernia are not overweight because you never eat, because eating makes you sick. So I eat whatever I want, of course, within the restrictions of my diet. I don't feel like there are any restrictions because the food I eat is delicious and I get to eat as much as I want. So I thoroughly enjoy my diet. It took me a year to be courageous enough to try it because I didn't think I'd be able to last on it for 3 seconds because it seems so extreme, but it's really not. The diet that I'm on is actually the most natural way of eating. It is gives me energy, it heals my body, and it's delicious. So I'm going to talk more about that tomorrow. So hope you'll tune in, and I hope you have an amazing day, and I hope that you are relaxing your belly. All right, thanks for watching.